Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Welcome to True Crime to Go. What can I get for you?
You know, I've just been craving the mountains. Can you give me something that has the flavor of East Tennessee, you reckon, darling?
Pull up to the second window and we'll see you next crime.
Welcome to True Crime to Go. I'm John here with Jamie. You all right, man?
I'm good. I've been thinking about the mountains a lot. It's particularly about today's topic, but just put you in the mindset of a lot of these people and my people, you know?
They are our people, even though we didn't live in the same states growing up, but they might as well have been the same.
They may as well. Yeah, I mean, it was the same spot, different name, same culture, that kind of thing. And that's kind of what it brings us to today.
Yeah, today's case is going to take us back to East Tennessee in the winter of 1992. And this is a case that would really just leave an entire family shattered. So this is not going to be one of our traditional funny cases. If that upsets you, hang tight because Friday's a coming and we've got a doozy of a case lined up for that. But we wanted to talk about the story of two siblings, Connie and Tommy. And we wanted to tell you this story as a way to push you towards our friend Beth Braden's podcast that she started. It's called Time of Death. And so we just kind of wanted to give you the basics of the case and then send you her way because there's a lot going on.
A lot going on. And this is a story with a lot of controversy. And unlike a lot of cases we covered, a lot of urgency in this one.
Absolutely. So let's get to know the people involved. There's Tommy Griffin. He was a young man from East Tennessee. He was known by family and friends as someone who was deeply connected to those around him. His sister, Connie Branam, was equally devoted to her family. So these two were close, and that closeness would become tragically important. When Tommy disappeared, Connie did not sit back and wait. She immediately began trying to find him. Also in their circle were Gary Sutton and James Dellinger. Now, these weren't strangers who crossed paths. These were friends who knew each other very well. So, Jamie, tell us what happened February 21st, 1992.
Yeah, that's a big day in this story. I guess 34 years ago or so. Tommy Griffin had spent a lot of that day with Gary and Jimmy. Like you mentioned, it was part of their circle, right? At some point in the evening, Griffin was arrested for public intoxication following an altercation, which honestly was not that rare of an occasion for this group of individuals or this area, really.
They were at a very common watering hole for all of them and probably had a little too much to drink.
It was a pretty minor offense, and he was released a little later. And after his release, that was the last time that Tommy was seen alive. Investigators would later determine that they believed after his release, he was back in the company of Gary Sutton and Jimmy Dellinger.
When Tommy failed to return home, his family realized that something was wrong. This was not normal behavior. So concern was pretty much the immediate feeling that took place. And no one was more determined to find him than his sister, Connie. So the very next day, Connie Branam began actively searching for her brother. She was asking questions. She was trying to retrace his last known movements and attempting to find out who had been with him or who had seen him. During that search, Connie was last seen with Gary Sutton and Jimmy Dellinger. So this would be the last confirmed sighting of her alive. So what happened next?
Yeah, so that's two siblings disappeared, and for both of them, their last known sighting was with these two individuals. So investigators were starting to think that these were very connected. Two siblings within a 24-hour period having gone completely missing, and maybe with the same two guys a few days later. Searchers made a grim discovery in Blount County, Tennessee. They found Tommy Griffin's body in an isolated location. He had been shot multiple times with a rifle. The scene made it clear pretty quickly that this was not an accident. Tommy had indeed been murdered.
Just 4 days later, that's when the second discovery was made. Connie Branam's body was found inside her burned vehicle in Sevier County. So investigators quickly determined that the fire had been intentionally set, and it appeared that this was an attempt to destroy any physical evidence that may have been at the scene in hopes of concealing the circumstances of her death. So now, like you said, we have two siblings, and now we have two murdered siblings spanning across two different counties. This involves different law enforcement agencies and, different court districts that all had to work together. So these cases were clearly connected, but, against, I guess, jurisdictional lines, if you will.
Yeah, and they came to the conclusion that it was more likely than not Gary and Jimmy. They recovered a rifle, and ballistics pointed it toward being the weapon that was used in Tommy's murder. And they had other witnesses saying that that's where Tommy was last seen, and potentially Connie as well. So they ended up having these two separate trials. Again, Connie's trial would be in Sevier County and Tommy's would be in Blount County. And they were both handled later that year. In Sevier County, they found Sutton and Dellinger both guilty of Connie Branam's murder, and each received a life sentence. In Blount County, they were both again convicted. This time, this was first-degree murder because they believed that they had planned ahead more for this one, and that Connie was more to keep her away from the scent of what they had done. And this time, they were both sentenced to death.
Yeah, since then, Jimmy Dellinger died in prison in 2023, but the case for Gary Sutton remains. So he's currently on Tennessee's death row. He is one of a few people that are set to be executed this year, 2026. But there's a lot going on, and we don't want to cover that right now. Instead, we want to let you know about our friend Beth. She's been on the podcast numerous times on bonus episodes. We've interviewed her numerous times. So she has started a podcast about this case called Time of Death. We're going to link that information in the podcast notes below, but we want you to go check it out. There's 3 episodes available at the time of this recording, and there will be a 4th this Friday. Jamie, I'm hooked. This is just very, very interesting information. And I think there's a lot more to this story that we haven't told you because we want you to hear it from Beth herself.
Yeah, I'm all caught up on what she's put out so far, and it's super impressive. The research and the delivery. She's a great storyteller, and she's really up against the clock. She is trying to see if she believes Gary Sutton should be given some kind of relief before his scheduled December execution. And that's there aren't very many countdowns that are as as urgent as a death sentence countdown, right?
Especially when it's set to happen this year and there's a hard date set. So,
right.
Yeah, I would highly recommend checking out that podcast. Again, Beth Braden, good friend of the show. Go check it out.
Absolutely. This has been an introduction to a crime story in 10 minutes or less.
Would you like crime with that?
You've listened to True Crimecast, distributed by Stoveleg Media. Check out stoveleg.com to find out more about your hosts and to find other podcasts to listen to. Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.